a pizza. And things hadn't turned out well for this guy in November. This might well have been a major part of what he spent his future doing. We've been trying to find pizzas since pretty much the beginning of Google. And finding pizzas was one of those things that initially got us into local and into mapping. And it's interesting to go back in time and to see how things have changed. We went back to 2004. If I was searching for pizzas, this was Google Local of the time, it would pull up limited information about a particular pizza store, and I would have to type, I'm searching for pizza, and I'm in Palo Alto. I'd have to separate that query out myself as an end user. I'd be forced to say, I'm searching for this, and I'm here. And I'd get back maybe one or two results, and I've hidden it behind this screen here, but I'd get a map that was produced by this company called MapQuest. You might have heard of them. They were famous ones. Now, if I type pizza, it actually automatically identifies where I am. It auto-completes. It says, okay, you're near Palo Alto. Here's all the pizza restaurants that are nearby, and look at all the rich content that I now have available to you from all of that information that we have got access to across the rest of the internet. Reviews, photographs, content that those particular site owners may have put together. So although superficially it looks quite the same, actually there's a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes to make that a much more sophisticated result. If I actually look at that result in more detail, pull up what you'd actually see, well, clearly you'd see a map, and the map is now something that we create ourselves, rather than having to use MapQuest. We have photos that have been taken indoors for that particular pizza restaurant. We have what it looks like from the outside, from Street View. We have reviews. Those reviews can be, if you like, kind of professional restaurant reviews, or they might be the reviews of my friends, using that Google Plus that we saw earlier. Details of opening hours, the nearest transit, if I want to get there using public transport, menus from urbanspoon.com, and other reviews from around the internet. All of that information brought together, so in terms of decision making, me just typing in pizzas, I pull up all of this information that's relevant. And of course, all of that information that's relevant also available to me on my mobile device, be it a phone or a tablet. And most of our users now are coming to Google Maps and are looking for local content via their mobile devices, more than come via the traditional website. And it's a big number. We've heard lots of numbers thrown around. We have about 1 billion monthly active users of Google Maps at this point in time. Certainly 1 billion people have also downloaded Google Earth and make use of that. And that's a really big number. We think today people have access to mapping more than there's ever been the case in any point in our history. People get access to geographical content, they use it in their day-to-day lives. And that's really what we're interested in. We want this to be something that you come back to, that you use part of your day-to-day life, and it's something that is there as a helper, is there to help you make decisions during the day. So, how do we do this? How do we build all of this infrastructure that sits behind the scenes? Sometimes it's exposed to the map, but sometimes it's there behind making your search work better. Well, we heard a little bit about Street View earlier. We spend a lot of time getting images of the world. We get a lot of aerial photography. We have an aeroplane there. There's a Street View Jeep driving through. In this case, I think it's down near Port Elizabeth. We actually have this is a good picture. We have a tricycle with a Street View camera on it, but attached to a train, because we wanted to get some images of this famous railway in Switzerland. It's very sort of very beautiful, very keen touristic approach. The easiest way to do it will be to strap the guy on, and because of health and safety regulations, bizarrely, we actually had to have a cyclist on the bicycle despite the fact he was on a train. Not quite sure, the brakes didn't work, had no effect, but there you go. And you saw the guy going down Grand Canyon using his Street View. But we spend a lot of time gathering images at those different scales. So we have aerial photography that comes from satellite images, we have this oblique imagery now, which gives you like the sort of view as if you were looking out of an aeroplane. So it's kind of looking down at an angle, and then street view imagery that in many ways our users find the most valuable because it's the least abstract. It's like you're standing on the street corner. And we regard this as the last level of zoom. You know, you zoom in, you zoom in, you zoom in, and then you're standing on the street corner and you can look around. And it's very powerful because it's the way that we see the world. We don't pretend to see the world as maps. And let me give you an example of what I mean. And this is a dangerous experiment for this time in the day because your blood sugar levels are kind of dipping. And although it probably would be more dangerous if you just eat. What I want you to do is to close your eyes. Slow your breathing down as much as you can. Calm. And I'm going to mention a place name, and I want you to just record what you see when I mention that place name in your mind's eye. Okay? So if I mention the Grand Canyon, okay? Open your eyes now. Now remember what you saw. What you saw was probably not this. This is a really nice map, and for me as a geographer, I love this. This is our terrain view of the Grand Canyon in Google Maps. And it's fantastically detailed, and we're really proud as geographers of how well we rendered this. We think this is fabulous. But actually, for most people, that's not what they think of when you talk about the Grand Canyon. When you talk about the Grand Canyon, what most people think of, hopefully, is this. If I get this demo to work. No, it isn't. You stole my internet connection. Now I can get it to work. One moment. Eventually get there. Okay. That is probably what you think of. So this is the street view that we took with that guy walking down the path using that contraption on his back. It's quite heavy. You have to be quite fit to do this, so we can carry on walking along. And again, it's not the same clearly as being there. The scale of the Grand Canyon is something that you can only really appreciate if you're there. But that's much closer to what we imagine the Grand Canyon is like than that traditional cartographic representation. Not that there's anything wrong with maps. They're a very powerful way of representing often complex things. But actually having these images for lots of places around the world is really, really important. And we continue to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of collecting this imagery because it is so useful to our users. All right, let's get back to my slides. Now remember, I showed you that picture that was what we call oblique imagery. So like if you're looking out of an aeroplane, you're looking down at 45 degrees. We have that imagery available in Google Maps, and it's very useful. But we can also use it in a technique that's called digital photogrammetry. And we can use those images to create three-dimensional models of the places that we've flown over in our aeroplanes. I'm just going to show you a very quick video of what that looks like. So here we are, this is the three-dimensional data that is produced by those aircraft. And when you take the 3D content and then you put the photographs on top of the 3D content, you end up with these very photorealistic views of the cities. And this is different to how Google Earth used to work. Google Earth used to work by combining lots and lots of data together, captured at different times. So it never quite felt right. Whereas this is data that's all captured pretty much at the same time. So the shadows are all consistent, and it feels like you're flying over any particular area in a little helicopter. And again, this is something we're putting a lot of effort into collecting this data because it gives you that real sense of what a particular place is like, and it's easy to explore. In many ways, that's what we spend an awful lot of our time doing, is collecting data. And you know, it's something that we have taken about 7 or 8 years to kind of work out how to do this well. And it means that you end up having to take lots of different approaches to try and get the level of detail, the level of content, the level of accuracy that our users demand when they're out using Google Maps. One of the places I want to show you getting a map of is here. Anyone guess the place I'm talking about? Casablanca. Casablanca was one of those parts of the world where the traditional sources of mapping that you might go to get digital mapping data had just ignored. It was a part of the world that they were not interested in, and remains a part of the world where it's still hard to buy commercial mapping data. So we've taken an approach to allow our users, to ask our users to help us complete the maps of those parts of the world where otherwise mapping data wasn't available. And we call this Project MapMaker. And I'm just going to show you a quick video that represents a year of our users in effect creating the map of Casablanca. So here we are starting off, not very much there. And as the year progresses, you see, in this case, it's probably a few hundred users starting to contribute, and it ends up being a very, very detailed map of Casablanca, equally detailed as you might find in many other parts of the world. And it's contributed by our users, and our users bring that unique perspective of those places that are important to them, those things that make a difference. And this is a really exciting project. It's the way that maps increasingly will be kept up to date in the future. It allows us to map places like this. This is Pyongyang in North Korea. North Korea, as you can imagine, is a very, very difficult place to get mapping. Now, you can imagine turning up at the airport with your Street View kit and seeing how welcome you would be felt. But nevertheless, the locals there, people who have perhaps family in North Korea or have visited and knew the local neighbourhoods, have helped to start to build these maps. And for the first time in many cases, these maps are being created and made available. So where are we going?